tonight we have a talk by BSD member Leon Winnert. And this is Leon's first talk to members, as far as I'm aware. Leon is currently a professional engineer, but he has an interest in the more spiritual side of life, including healing and spiritual release. And his talk tonight is entitled Egyptian Pendulum Healing. So the talk will cover the history and current day use of Egyptian healing devices, more commonly known today as Egyptian pendulums, and he'll show some practical examples of their use.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for the introduction, Nick. As Nick said, I'm Leon Winnert. I'm here to give you a talk on Egyptian pendulum healing. But before we start, I'd like to introduce you to Francine Falcon. She's an emissary of the sun god, Ra, falcon-headed god. She flew in from Egypt last night. She's been sent by Ra to ensure I stay on message and toe the party line. So if I misbehave, I'm going to get a peck or two. So thank you very much, Francine. So you can just pop off over there and keep an eye on me. And then we'll get on and chatter away. Give the talk. Right, let's get those pilot books out of the way. Right, where are we? Share screen. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, there we go. Oh. Yeah, we're trying to get a share screen here. Hang on a minute. There we go. We've got a presentation. Okay, so Egyptian pendulum heating by me. Right. Right, about me, as Nick said, I'm a professional engineer, and that's one like my day life. I also have something I call my Glastonbury life, and that is where I do a lot of channeling for my partner, who is on the audience tonight. I do healing, I do spirit release therapy, dowsing, of course, and I'd like a bit of mysticism, and I'm very interested in history, as you're about to find out. So the talk structure, we're going to be looking at the history and background and modern applications of Egyptian healing. So how did I get into all of this? Well, Glastonbury 2019, the Megalithomania conference, and a lady called Maria Wheatley, whom I'm sure some of you know, was giving a presentation on some research work that had been done on energies around the rollright stones. At the very end of her presentation, she flashed up on the screen two pendulum type devices. She says, oh, these are Egyptian healing pendulums. For me, it was a Damascene moment. I just thought, oh yeah, wow, I've got to know something about that. So tracked Maria down on the internet and found that she was doing training on these things. So I signed up and trained, which was very, 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 very good. There we go. Right. Yes. So since training with, well, during training with Maria, after training with Maria, I've done further work within this Egyptian healing device area. Done some training with Alicia Aratin, who was the one-time vice president of the Canadian Society of Dowsers, and she does lots of online courses, DVDs and stuff. There's Dr. Ibrahim Karim, who I will talk about a bit later on, read some of his stuff. And then there's Carolina Klapatek-Lelin, who is the face of Biopendulums in Tunbridge Wells. That's the place where my partner and I, we get a lot of our pendulums. We also get some from Alicia as well. Right, so ancient Egyptians, the managed energy environment. The Egyptian Dr. Ibrahim Karim, architect, town planner, archaeologist, has researched the beneficially energetic relationships his ancestors from pharaonic times created between their natural and built environments. He concluded that they did so to enhance the well-being of all life forms living in that environment. Now, ancient Egyptian, of course, is not the only culture that's done that. As we look through history, we find out that our ancestors, no matter where they were building structures to utilize earth energies or suppress nasty energies And this was going right on through the Middle Ages, really, up until the Enlightenment, when we're told we didn't need spirituality, or we could do everything with science. We lost out. Anyway, Christopher Dunn argues in his book, The Giza Power Plant, the Great Period of Giza, his book, The Giza Power Plant, suggests that the Great Pyramid of Giza was in fact designed, built and used as a generator of energies on a wide scale, beneficial to all life forms. And based on the above, I suggest that the Isis and Karnak Egyptian healing pendulums are energy generators in their own right, were constituent parts of the pharaonic energy management system. So what is in Egyptian pendulum healing? It's a complementary therapy. It's a means of delivering energy healing. It is one means, but not the only means of doing so. We actually have the laying on of hands. Well, it's a bit dangerous to lay hands on these days, so we have to hover hands. There's Reiki, and as we will find, of course, that with a lot of these energy healing therapies, there are derivations of that. So there are many of them, all aiming to do the same thing, is using energy of a life form to assist with healing, or earth energy to assist with the healing. So there are pendulums. There are only two pendulums in use, Isis and Karnak. So here on the left we see Isis. Good quality one will break down into three parts, two witness chambers, and we need them to be broken down. And here we actually have Karnak. Again, it's a device which breaks down into three parts. We definitely need to be able to take the string off it if we're going to be doing certain aspects of healing. There are others that claim to be Egyptian. There are others that claim to be Egyptian pendulums, but they are not. They're 20th and 21st century European and North American inventions in the main, whose designs are derivations of Isis and Karnak, or the inherent principles of energy being generated by their shape. We'll look at some of these later on, but remember, Egyptian pendulums are not divination tools. I repeat, they are not divination tools. They can be used as such, but that is not their purposes. They are complementary healing devices. So they're quite unique. So let's have a look at the history of Egyptian healing devices. So the devices from pharaonic times, about 4,500 years old, used by the priestly classes and deities to deliver healing. Information on their use is found in the relief and carvings and paintings on the walls of temples, Abydos, Karnak, etc. Isis devices depicted in imagery associated with the goddess Isis, actually carved sandstone devices found in tombs and temples. Now, in tombs, of course, Karnak devices were found laid on the mummy. And the thing with a Karnak device in its raw state, it generates an energy which will dry and desiccate material, vegetables, meat, etc., etc. So these were actually placed in the temple, in the tomb, sorry, to assist in the mummification process. The Karnak device was found in the Temple of Karnak. Surprise, surprise. So here we are. So look at some pictures of what's going on. So we actually have here a device called the JED, D-J-E-D, and it is a prototype of the Isis pendulum. We'll look at it in a few more minutes. We'll consider it a bit more. Now here we actually see a relief painting in a temple. We see a god here, a deity, is holding in his hand a staff, and on the top of that staff is the Jed and an Ankh, and this would obviously be a priest who's making an offering to the deity. We actually have here another example of a priest making an offering to a deity. It's got the offering here. There we see the Jed and the Ankh. This particular picture here is a full-scale view of the one I've just shown you, because what I showed you before was this little bit here. But there it seems to be pouring a glass of vino as well. So keep him happy. Now here we're actually looking at Karnak devices. Two gods, deities, with Karnak devices. And here's a mortal. So they're actually delivering healing to a mortal. This particular mural shows the same again. Carac device, deity, deity, mortal, and coming out of the Carac device, there's streams of ankhs. Ankhs are representations of eternal life. Now here is a little Carac pen device, which quite by accident I came across in the Brighton Museum and Art Gallery early in the summer. They're described as amulets, and they're made of papyrus stalks. The black one is energetically active, whereas the grey one is not. The black one's about 2 centimeters long. I was able to measure the energy outputs of the black one, and its energy output accords in terms of colours being emitted to the Carac pendulum I use, which has been tuned under instruction from Maria. So there you have something thousands of years old, still active, and its output is the same as the devices we're tuning up today. So the Egyptian gods, well, the relevant ones we need to talk about. There are far too many, and they kept changing their identities and their mission statements as time evolved. They fell in favour, out of favour. They had to rebrand themselves and so on and so on. But we're only interested in 3: Isis, Osiris, and Ra. So here is Isis. Now all these depictions of the gods show them with some sort of horny thing on their heads, and this disc, that's the sun. Okay, now they're all carrying an ankh, and they're all carrying a staff or an antenna, which supposedly channels energies from the cosmos down into the earth. Now we can tell that Isis is a female. She's a little bit undressed up in the top region here. She's got a long skirt, and she has a little bit of a protruding bottom. We have Osiris. He's sitting in some sort of niche here, surveying the world. Not quite sure what he's doing there, but he is. And now here we have Ra, the falcon-headed god, the sun god. Again, he's got this sun thing on his head. He's a male god because he's got a knee-length skirt, and he has an ankh, and he has, again, this device which is antenna for charging up the earth. Right. Now let's have a look at, again, a representation of the symbols that that are being carried by the gods. So the first one we have is the symbol as the colour of the sun here. Then we have the serpent symbol, which is Kundalini or consciousness, sometimes known as the Eye of Ra. It is effectively a cobra. And for those who have got memories going back certain time, might want to call him Hissing Sid. We have the antenna waveguide used in conjunction with the ankh rod, and the ankh, of course, we have the symbol of life and pure force of energy. Isis was a goddess and ancient, so let's talk about Isis. She was an ancient Egyptian goddess for ancient Egyptian religious beliefs. Her worship spread throughout the Greco-Roman world. She's the ideal mother, the mother goddess, mum. This nurturing, loving person who's there for everybody, and she's very popular, and she endured right through time, through antiquity. Obviously, any healing energies associated with Isis and Isis devices are going to be soft, nurturing, and feminine. According to myth, so we'll talk about Osiris now. Myth is the god of the deceased, son of the oldest child of Deb and deity of Nut. His wife, in fact, and sister was Isis. So Isis was the goddess of motherhood. And it says that Osiris and Isis were deeply in love each other, even in the womb. Now, one of the things you have to realize with these ancient deities, Greek myth, Egyptian myth, there's lots of brothers and sisters, fathers and daughters, mothers and sons intermarrying. So incest was quite rife, and it was considered to be perfectly acceptable. Unfortunately, what you do find, of course, is that the ruling classes, the kings, etc., of these cultures all believe that they were actually descended from the gods, and to keep the bloodline intact, they indulged in incest with absolutely catastrophic results. So anyway, tragedy for trying to follow a myth. So Osiris was killed by a jealous Seth who tore the corpse into 14 pieces and flung them all over the kingdom of Egypt. Eventually, Isis and her sister found and buried all the pieces except the phallus, therefore giving new life to Osiris, who then popped into the underworld as a ruler and judge. Now, any energies associated with Osiris are going to be hard and masculine. It is from Osiris myth that we get the design and construction of the Isis healing device. We're going to talk more about that later. Excuse me, I'll just drink some tea. Ra. Ra was the king of the deities, the father of all creation. He was the patron of the sun, heaven, kingship, power, and light. He was not only the deity who governed the actions of the sun, it could also be the physical sun himself. Now at night he journeyed through the underworld of Duat, the Egyptian version of hell. Here he faced many bad dudes and challenges, where of course he vanquished them all and emerged victorious at daybreak. Well, he had to, and there wasn't going to be a new day, so we had to go and do the job properly every night. So he shone forth once more on a grateful world to emerge from the Duat, symbolizing rebirth. The energies of Ra and the power that power Isis and Karnak are the healing devices. Okay, so Ra's energies power Isis and Karnak. So 24 hours in the life of Ra. So here we see Ra, and he's excuse me a minute, I just need to move some. So here we see Ra is on his little boat floating across the sky during the daytime, the sun shining and bringing lights and warmth and everything else that the sun does during the day. And now he's on the night shift in the Duat. So at night, sundown, he enters the hell, the Duat. He enters through the Karnak symbol, right? This is the gateway into hell. So he goes through there and he meets his challenges. And here's one particular challenge he's meeting, which is really, really big, nasty snake. So it's being challenged and dealt with. But as you notice, he's a god, he's a king. He has flunkies to do the work for him. So he's got some flunky there dealing with the issues. Now, what we actually have here, of course, in daybreak, of course, he floats out the other side of hell and he goes out through the Karnak portal again into the sunshine of the daybreak. And this is the rebirth, and you can actually consider the Karnak in this particular instance of this side as the birth canal. So let's look at design and construction. We're now going to take a very quick look at the design and construction of the Isis and Karnak healing devices. So Isis in 4 pictures. So what we actually have here is the Jed again. This time it's known as the Tree of Life, and it's shown in full. Big tree, 4 discs. These 4 discs are symbolic of the spine of Osiris. The thing's cut down, as we saw in a previous picture, to something like this: the 4 discs and a bit of a stump of the trunk, and we have the ankh. Merge the 2 together, and we end up with the Isis pendulum. We have Karnak now in 1 picture. Karnak is a designed on intersecting circles. So the big red circles you see intersect, they define the shape of the body of the device. We have green circles, they define the contours of the top bit of the body. We have the blue circles, which define the undercut of the cap, and then we have the black circle, which defines the curve of the at the very top of the device. So how do Isis and Karnak generate energy? But before we can appreciate this fact, we need to take a look at high-frequency color dowsing. High-frequency color dowsing deals with the detection of color energies that are higher harmonics of the visible light spectrum. Dr. Karim calls them the qualities of physics. Because they are higher harmonics, they are beyond the sensitivity of the human eye, so we cannot see them. However, some people can. They actually have the ability to see colored auras in people, and they can see people's chakra colors. But we don't have to be able to see them ourselves, because I can't, but but with the right devices, we can detect them. And devices I use are a color wheel. This is one developed by Maria Wheatley. Use and interpretation with respect to people, places and objects is fully described in her book, Divining Ancient Sites, chapters 8 and 11. Now, what we see around here are 12 of the esoteric covers, or the high frequency colors, for high frequency dowsed colors. We've got the colors of natural, the ones we can see anyway, the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Then we've got 4 others, ultraviolets, but it's not the ultraviolet that damages at midday. This is an esoteric UV, and it's at its strongest at daybreak. Then we actually have infra-white, and around this side we have infrared, which is a physical color, but we can't see it, and we've got infra-black and negative green. Now, all of these colors we actually have with light. They can be represented in physics as the wave-particle duality. Depending how we're trying to consider it and what we're trying to do with light, we can consider it as a particle, or we can consider it as a wave. From what we're doing here, we consider it as a wave. Now, the wave, the light wave, can be polarized either horizontally or vertically. If it's polarized vertically, it's electric, and it is highly damaging. If it's actually polarized horizontally, that's magnetic, and it is very nurturing. Now, the frequencies themselves, the frequency bands which these high frequency colors work in, there are 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'll note that they actually coincide with the layers of our auras. I know some people talk about seven layers of an aura, some go more, but 5 is also a reasonable convention. The other thing I use is something called a virtual cone pendulum, designed by Leon Winnert and Antoine de Bellezelle, and I'm going to talk about those gents later on. There is some limited information to be found on its usage on the internet, but let's just have a look at this device. Here it is, a virtual cone pendulum. Let me just get this piece of string out of the way. Now, the way it works in actual fact is you actually have down here letters, and they are each one's for a color. We've got Y for yellow, O for orange, and the whole idea for to get it to detect a color, I've got that the wrong way around, is to, I'll put it on yellow. That is on yellow. Right, that is on yellow. So that's now on yellow. Now, if I'm looking for a color yellow being emitted by something, I'd set it there. I'd hang the pendulum over over whatever it is I'm interested in. And if it starts to swing in a clockwise direction, it tells me that whatever it is I'm inspecting, is radiating yellow. Now, the way this is set up at the moment, as you see, there's a little lip on the disc there. That is actually for the magnetic nice energy side of it. I'll take the disc out, put it on that way, and it detects the colors in the electrical nasty aspect. All right, you can go back in the box, and let's just share. Oh dear, hang on a minute. Put that back up there. Share screen. Share screen. There we go. Share screen. Share. There we go. We're all back again. Right, so here we are. So let's go on to the next slide. Oops. Right, energies and shape of Ra, and Ra, the sun god. So investigation and research. In 1920s, Tutankhamun's tomb was found. The world went crazy for all things ancient Egyptian. Of course, in the 20s, we were at the height of the Art Deco era. So Art Deco designs started to incorporate into their imagery and such like ancient Egyptian stuff. So yeah, so the whole world was going crazy for this. So we actually have pioneers of high frequency color dowsing, Leon Winnert, a French researcher, and 2 physicists, Antoine de Bellezelle and Philippe Morel. They start to investigate high frequency colors emitted by ancient Egyptian artifacts, such as pyramids at one end and Isis and Karnak devices at the other. What they found was that shapes such as a sphere or a flat disc automatically generate 12 different colors. Now, we've actually seen the 12 different colors on the color frequency wheel, and also my pendulum, as my virtual cone pendulum. And it was these guys, Chomery and Belazel and Morel, who invented the virtual cone pendulum. So what we actually see here are these colors being generated. Now, let's just assume this is the Earth, and up here we've got the sun, Ra. Now, if you're standing here on the Earth here at daybreak, the most intense colors of these high frequency colors, these esoteric colors, are going to be ultraviolet, violet, and indigo. And as the Earth moves round on its course, rotates around there, you're standing there, you're stationary. As you come into the early morning, the early hour of the morning, you're starting to get blue as the most intense color. Then you come to midday, solar midday, not British summertime. You get green as the most intense, early afternoon yellow, late afternoon orange, and then we come around to sunset and we get red, infrared. And as we go into the night now, we start getting black, or what we call infrablack. And as we come around and we're at now solar midnight, we get this negative green energy. Now, why are you're saying to yourself, why negative green? Well, our French friends, they discovered this and they didn't know what it was. But they said, well, actually, it's opposite green. So we'll call it negative green. But I'll come back to that in a minute. But if you keep on going round, you come to white. Okay, so we're coming back to the dawn now and white. Well, black is one side, white's the other. In the middle of black and white is grey. And it is said that those who can see this energy actually see grey. Now, if we actually take what we see here and turn it into a horizontal circle, we get these colours going around there. Now, if we care to draw a rectangle in here, like that, like that, like that, that is the base of a pyramid. Now, the Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned true north, true south. So the north face is emitting green energies, nice green energies, and the south face is emitting negative green energies. The west face is red, the east face is violet, and the intermediate points, of course, are all these other colours. Now, here's a little chart I made up some time ago, just trying to put in some context just for myself, what these colours were and where they kind of lay. So we've got the visible physical colours, we've got the non-visible physical colour, which is infrared. We've got what we call the temple colours, which is spiritual gold, metaphysical UV, infra white. Then we've got the additional colours of Ra, which is negative green and infra black. Now, we've seen this disc before. Okay, so I won't talk about that, but what we do, if we lay it on its side and it's a disc, we start finding that these colours are actually on the edge of the disc. Okay, and if we take these discs and we start stacking them up on one on top of the other, we actually get what now transpires to be the discs of a Isis pendulum. And we call these batteries. Okay, these are known as batteries. And just as in a torch, when you put more and more batteries in there, you get more bigger and bigger voltage to power the bulb. So what actually happens with this disc, we've now got it on its side, and it's now generating energy. And these discs, they actually generate white light, which is a healing light, a clearing light, a clearing energy, a healing energy. So now what we're doing, we actually have a disc here which is giving off a level of energy. We put it in there, put the next one across. So we now actually add the energy from there, adds to the energy from there, and so it goes on down, and eventually it is emitted out of the pointy bit at the bottom. So that is your Isis device. But for it to be able to work properly, of course, we actually still need the anchor representation on the top, which is this ball on the top, and this bit here, which represents the ankh. If you take that off, it stops. Well, it doesn't stop generating, but it significantly reduces the generated energy. We now come to this particular device, a hemisphere. Our French friends noted that, of course, that a sphere was giving out all these colours, and they said, well, actually, we don't want these on the bottom. We're not interested in those. And so they said, just cut the bottom off of the thing, just cut it off, and the engines will go away, won't they? And so they did, and they tested it. No, they didn't. They just popped up and sat underneath. So they weren't going to go away. It's the energy of shape. You know, you can do what you like with the shape, but it's still going to emit energies, the full scale of them. So what they said was, okay, well, let's see what happens when we start stacking them up, again, as batteries. So we actually have what we now call the Osiris pendulum. Now, the Osiris pendulum is not anything that's been found in temples. It's actually a invention of a research laboratory somewhere in France or Belgium, by these guys who made this thing. And again, but this thing, of course, doesn't emit white light. It emits negative green in the nasty site, in the vertical. So it's stack them up, and again, you're actually increasing the amount of energies. You know, the more discs you have in there, the greater the energy that's going to pop out at the bottom. So that's that one. Right, okay, right, let's move on. Carac. Carac energies are generated in the top here, and they go into the body, and they come out down the bottom. Again, the energies which are coming out of here is negative green in the vertical, again, the nasty energy. So again, energies generated by Carac and well, hang on a minute, play with the crib sheet. So Isis is the light side of the energies of Ra, as we said, and it's an as-made state. It naturally generates and emits white light energy. It is safe to use in any situation. By analogy, consider it on a par with a home first aid kit. To be fully effective, it needs to be tuned to the full spectrum of colours, from infrared to esoteric, ultraviolet and spiritual gold. Now, the training I did with Maria, we tuned the pendulums to this full spectrum. So we now have a very capable healing device. Carac is the shadow side of the energies of Ra. Remember, Ra is going through the Duat, which is the underworld of Egyptian mythology. He goes in one side through the Carac portal, and comes out the other side. So yes, you're going to have dealing with Ra is going to be dealing with very, very nasty energies, clearing them up. So in its as-made state, it naturally generates and emits negative green electric, as I've said. It's not safe to use in any situation. By analogy, consider it on a par with specialized equipment only found in a hospital, but it can be retuned to make it safe. Again, the Carac pendulums I use have been retuned. They are safe energies, and there is more energies coming out of the color energies coming out of them than in the as-made state. Okay, Osiris, as I say, involved out of the investigations made by Chomri and Belazil and Morel. They were intrigued by negative green and experimented to find out more. As with Carac, it is the shadow side of the energies of Ra. In its as-made state, it naturally generates and emits negative green. Again, it's not safe to be used, but it can be retuned to make it safe. And Chomri built a coupled array of large Osiris devices in order to maximize the generation of negative green vertical. It killed him. He was found dead in his laboratory by his colleagues, desiccated and mummified. Now, this is what he built. You see all these elements of Osiris, more there, going into this big collector ball there. Here we actually have more devices here, more there. So he got this thing, and he was absolutely awash with this negative green vertical energy, which mummifies, desiccates. Spent a little bit too long in there, and it killed him. Poor man. So as I spoke earlier on about the light energies we've discussed can be represented by waveforms polarized both vertically and horizontally. So here we actually have a light waveform. This is the vertical one. We can always say, we know that the vertical is dangerous. You can just remember it by saying vertical is vicious. And this is the horizontal one, the magnetic. There we go. And horizontal is happy. Negative green is generated quite naturally by shapes, and at the interfaces where two shapes of substances meet. Crenellations on the top of a building, water flowing in an underground stream, the lines where waves break on a beach. And the negative green in the vertical is the radiated energy of geopathic stress. So the qualities of negative green, the electrical, is very harmful to almost all life forms, beneficial to some life forms such as ants, cats, termites and ferns, possesses a strong mummifying effect, as Mr. Shomri found out. It dehydrates, it preserves tissues, it can be detected in electromagnetic fields and global grids. The magnetic, on the other hand, is pro-life, healthy, very beneficial for life forms, balances and centers all living organisms, present in all power centers on Earth, will balance and heal your chakras, and will fill your body with its energies in order to support your health. Negative green electric emitted by Carac and Osiris devices is used to treat conditions such as viruses, parasites, infections and inflammations, etc. Negative green electric can be transmitted directly in its raw state to effect healing, or used as a carrier wave to transmit other healing frequencies such as white light. Now, negative green electric is only recommended for use by those who have acquired sufficient knowledge to handle that vibration. So you need to have some good experience in handling safely tuned Isis and Karnak pendulums to get an understanding of what it is you're doing before you can kind of move on to use these more well, can I say dangerous or ones that need handling with care. If used incorrectly, it has the potential to cause cancers, and by the same token it can be used on tumors, but in use the energy stream must be very accurately directed and physically contained in the area. Now, in terms of a big pendulum, I'll just show you something. This is a big Osiris pendulum, and it belongs to my partner who's actually watching, so I will look after it, my dove. You always take these pendulums, they're broken down. If you buy one that doesn't break down, get rid of it, because when you take them apart, they stop generating energies. Now this one, put it back together, that's now generating full, and it is actually a negative green in the electric aspect, but overlaid with a white light, a white healing light. Now it uses the negative green in the electric as a carrier wave, and to get the thing to work, you actually just tap it on the bench, that sets it off, and you just then point it at whatever it is you're aiming for, and it'll heal. It's in that healing light. Right, so that's that. Where are we? Yes. Right. There we go. Share screen. Get rid of this lot again. Right. So yes. So that's a big Osiris device, and the energy that it gives out is quite spectacular. I have measured the energies using a Bovis Chart, and that is a very powerful emitter of energies, that particular thing. Spiritual gold. Spiritual gold is an esoteric energy that is generated by shape. It is at the pinnacle of the hierarchy of healing colors. It is said to be the most beneficial of them all. Spiritual gold is naturally generated on the inside of a dome, very definitely, a burial chamber, possibly, but it depends on the shape of the roof, the inside of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and any geometrically accurate replica of that pyramid, and also the Atlantean symbol found in Egyptian temples, and I'll talk about that in a minute. In terms of a dome, if you want spiritual gold, churches with a dome dome roof will generate spiritual gold. St Mary Ab Church in the City of London near Cannon Street Station does a good job. Just around the corner, St Stephen's Walbrook does the same, and also so would St Paul's Cathedral. Now all three churches, in actual fact, were designed and built by Sir Christopher Wren. Me and my partner have actually tested the energies in St Mary's Abchurch and St Stephen's Walbrook. Haven't bothered to go to St Paul's. I'm too tight-fisted to pay the entry fee to go and go in there. Right, further investigative work. Not long after Chaumery and died, the Second World War intervened and all investigative work ceased. In the 50s and 60s, a new generation of researchers and European master dowsers restarted the investigative work and determined how to tune up Isis and retune Karnak and Osiris to use safe energies. Not only that, they worked out how to use them properly and for maximum effect. And it is in these traditions that I work, having been taught to do so by Maria Wheatley, whom along with her late father was trained by the self-same European master dowsers. Now let's have a look at some derivative pendulums emitting colour energies. Here we actually have a universal pendulum, which was designed by our researcher friends in the 30s. At its heart is a 6-element Osiris. And we'll have a look at one of those in a minute. This one here is a simplified universal pendulum. This is a Isis pendulum. It's the Mermet pendulum, designed and used by Abbé Mermet, a Swiss-French Jesuit priest who is credited with being the father of modern dowsing. So it's, as you see, Isis bits here, and this bottom bit is the bottom half of a Mermet pendulum. Here we hear a combination pendulum of the Osiris and Isis, and that actually pushes out a beneficial light. We actually have here a what some people might call a Thoth pendulum, but it's Karnak, Osiris, and Isis. Again, it pushes out a beneficial energy. Here is something called the Eye of Ra. It pushes out negative green in the vertical, and it's used as a carrier wave, or actually as a directly to project negative green vertical for specific healing applications. Now let's just have a look at one or two of these devices. Now what we've got here is the universal pendulum, and we have the ball. Let's have a look here. Get a bit closer to the camera. We have a ball, okay, and within that ball, of course, is the 6-element Osiris thing. Around the ball are meridians with lettering on. Now those lettering, in actual fact, are colours. Got BK for black, we've got Y for yellow, O for orange, and to get this thing to project a colour, you actually have to select a colour on one of these meridian bands that you're interested in. So we're going to actually go to yellow on that, and we're now yellow, and we've got the string directly over yellow, and if we want it to project, we can just command it to project yellow and it will do so. Or if we use it on one of these other meridians, I can put it on orange here. So I select the band, select the brass band over that meridian, and then I take the string and I put the little string over orange, and now that'll transmit orange on that particular band. Hang on, I'll just set that back to positive green. Right, there we go, back in your box. And right, here we actually have a simplified universal pendulum. Again, it actually gives out the full range of colors. The way it does this is that there's nothing in here. It's just a wooden ball painted black, but you actually have this string up here with a load of beads on there, colored beads. So if I want to actually project yellow, I'm going to project orange. If I want to project orange onto something, I just hold the orange bead with thumb and forefinger. That string length now determines that orange will be transmitted. When you're using these pendulums, they've got these very long strings on. You do need to make sure that you put the string into your hand like that and keep it completely covered up, because if you've got any bits of string hanging out, it's going to act as an antenna, and you're going to get all sorts of other energies zipping around as well, which you don't want. So put it back in that. John Lewis egg cup, just the right size. Right, let's go back and share the screen again and share screen, share, dunk, dunk. There we go, get rid of that. Right. Okay, so we've looked at these derivative pendulums. Now, that's just a small sample I've shown there, and all of these in actual fact are from Bayer pendulums. You can get them from there. I actually copy the photographs from their catalogue, online catalogue, but there are lots of them around. But you actually have to be careful what it is you're buying with these things, because some of them, as I said, can be giving off dangerous energies. So if anybody says, oh, you know, have this, all feel the energies, yeah, but do they actually know what they're making, these people? Because, you know, a lot of this stuff is coming out of the Far East, it's coming out of China, it's coming out of India. You know, they see these things, they copy them and think, oh, we can make some money on that. But they don't really understand what it is that they're selling. Or if they do give descriptions, the descriptions are often as not wrong. Right, I've gone the wrong way. Okay, now there are other symbols and devices, so we don't actually need pendulums to emitting color energies. We actually have here a carved wooden angel. I measured it and it came off with green. We have the ankh. This particular ankh was bought on a market stall in Brighton. It comes off with green. This is a Celtic cross, as you probably know. That gives off green. Now, this is the Atlantean symbol. It's a pendant. It's mine. I wear it around my neck all the time. Well, I wasn't when I take the photograph, obviously. But this Atlantean symbol was actually found on a finger ring carved out of sandstone in a temple or a tomb somewhere in ancient Egypt. And it is said to be beneficial, gives off healing energies, and it is protective. You can buy rings on off the internet. Some of them have actually been added to in terms of symbology and such like, so one wonders how effective they are. They're not necessarily representing the original item. Now, it is said that Lord Carnarvon, who was led the expedition to discover and open up Tutankhamun's tomb, wore one of these things, and he said it protected him from all sorts of things for all of his life. Now, I think, as we know, that quite a number of people who were on that Tutankhamun expedition all started to die off in rather unnatural circumstances, and that gave rise to the legend of the curse of Tutankhamun. So believe it if you will. Now, here's other devices which are giving off color energies. We actually have, this is a variant of the St. John's Cross. This is actually on a wall somewhere in Israel. We have the menorah, which is the Jewish 7-branch candlestick. And I have a trinket one, which I bought some years ago at home, and I put my color wheel over it to see what energy was coming out, and I got green. But then I've just recently found out that someone reckons you can get all the colors of the chakras out of these things, just going across from red down to violet. The fact that I actually had my color wheel over the middle, I might well have just been picking up the center. I need to go back and measure and see what's coming out the other bits. So take that with a bit of pinch of salt, that one. And here we have the Easter Island statues, all face out to sea. They're radiating negative green. They're forming a protective shield for the island. Pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Giza emits the full spectrum of high-frequency colours from around its sides. Negative green electrical at its base and spiritual gold within the upper 5/7 of its structure. As the Great Pyramid was part of the beneficial energy systems of ancient Egypt, then the last thing anybody wanted was it to be flooding the local neighbourhood with geopathic stress. It's daft, really, isn't it? This was overcome by building it as an 8-sided figure. Did you know the Great Pyramid of Giza was an 8-sided figure? Well, here it is. There's the Great Pyramid of Giza, aerial photograph, and at a certain time of day, when the sun is just glancing across the edge here, this is a concave surface, and you'll find that this bit here will be in shadow, and this bit here is in light, because the sun's just going to move around slightly more and the whole lot's going to be bathed in light. So you get this effect here, and you can see that the pyramid is in fact an 8-sided figure. It was the 1940s this was seen. The RAF noticed it and photographed it. It's their contribution to spirituality. I say that advisedly. I was in the RAF. Cross section of the Great Pyramid of Giza. We see here, this is a diagram out of a book, Keys to the Temple by David Furlong. David shows that the Great Pyramid of Giza, it can be broken down into sevenths on its vertical, in a vertical aspect, and the King's Chamber is 2/7 of the way up, or 28% of the way up the structure. And this is where we start getting spiritual gold and good healing energies from there upwards, and below that they're not particularly nice energies. In principle, the geometry and dimensions of the pyramid are based on arithmetic combinations of the golden ratio, which is 1 to 1.618, the square root of 2 and 1. So they're very clever, these ancient Egyptians, using some fairly simple numbers to create some amazing structures with huge energy generation and energy management aspects. You can build your own healing pyramid. And you can do that for energy management purposes, and you can usually build, you can easily build your own space frame scaled replica of the Great Pyramid. The easiest way to do it is to go online. You can buy a kit of parts for the corners and for the apex, and then you just go and buy some copper tubes, get them from Screwfix. The critical dimension is the slope angle of the sides, which must be 51 degrees, 49 minutes, 38 seconds. It is at that particular slope angle which is actually the most efficient for the pyramid, whereas actually it's at its greatest potential for energy generation. Too little, too much. Hang on a minute, I need to get rid of something. Right, little message came up, so it's about a Zoom meeting. In terms of making it an 8-sided figure to right, yes. So in terms of making it an 8-sided figure to control negative green, you just wrap a piece of tape around the 4 base members at their midpoint. I've got one of these things, but I've actually scored the tubes with the pipe cutter. It looks a lot more aesthetic than a piece of gaffer tape. A base of 2 meter side gives a height to be able to sit in it, and a 3 meter side is big enough to fit a king-size bed within it, so you can sleep inside it. 2 meter and 3 meter are convenient sizes to make your pyramid of, because those are the standard sizes of copper piping that Screwfix and other plumbing merchants, suppliers of plumbing equipment sell. So there's a lot of good information on pyramids and their uses can be found on the DVD Science of Dowsing Part 9, Pyramids in the 21st Century by Alicia Aratin. Now, in that DVD, Alicia shows pyramids being used on people's gardens where they're growing their vegetables, and they're getting really vigorous growth and things like that. And there's a lot of wildlife comes and sits in these things because it likes the energies and it finds it healing. And it is said that the healing that can be delivered from inside of this pyramid is about 3 times the power of any healing if you were outside. So yeah, you can get a lot of healing out of it. So here we actually have a space frame pyramid. Okay, now this slope angle here, that's the 51 degrees you're after, from there down to there, not the sides here. Okay. Right, I'll talk again about a bit more about Dr. Ibrahim Karim, and Dr. Karim. I won't go through this first thing again. I've already dealt with that earlier on. In his research has driven him to review the built environments of many cultures across historical time with the same objectives as he was looking at for ancient Egypt, and he found very much the same. Ancient cultures were actually building structures to manage energy within their environments, amplify energies, good energies in certain areas where the earth energies were good, and where the earth energies were bad, they put something on there to suppress them. And this was going right the way up in until the Enlightenment, basically, the 17th century, 18th century, when we were told that we didn't need spirituality and religion and all this mumbo jumbo. Science had got all the answers. But up to that particular time, we were designing churches. In London, for instance, some of the churches like Hawksmoor were putting churches on really nasty energy sites in the city of London or around London just to manage them. So here, our own capital city, London, has actually had energy managed through architects of that time, and all other cities would have done. And going right back, of course, we've got the stone circles like Avebury and Stonehenge doing energy management. Anyway, Dr. Karim now teaches architects and town planners the art of biogeometry, which is a term he's coined, and he's got it as a registered trademark, in order that they may use the principles discovered by himself to design and build energetically beneficial structures and spaces. Now, the other thing that Dr. Karim has done, of course, what he's actually said is the modern world is awash with electro-smog. And electro-smog is the interference which is given out by electronic devices, whether it be phones, whether it be your computers, computer screens, masts of mobile phone masts. Now, there was a problem in a small town in Switzerland, and Swiss Telecom approached him and said, there's a lot of people suffering from our masts up here. Is there anything you can do about it? And other than take them away, he said, I'll have a look. So he went and he actually built some devices which he put on top of the mast around by the transmitter elements to deal with the damaging elements of the signals being given out by the masts. And he did it before and after, of course, measuring bad energies around the area, talking to people, getting interviews, da-di-da-di-da, checklists, you're suffering from this, what's this, da-di-da-di-da. Modifies the mast, goes back a short while later, measures energies, significant reduction, talks to people, significant improvement in well-being. Sadly, that activity has never been expanded, either in Switzerland or elsewhere in the world. Now, Dr. Karim actually has two pendulums he's designed for his biogeometry work. BG3 here on the right, and that emits a negative green magnetic. There's a carrier wave, spiritual gold and infra white on the spiritual frequency band. Now, all these other pendulums we've been looking at, they go down on the emotional, the physical band, which is band 1. What these are on is band 5. And that's an energy level of equivalent in size. An energy level is twice that of an equivalent size Isis and Carac device. BG16 emits negative green in the magnetic, spiritual gold and esoteric UV. On the spiritual frequency band again, at an energy level which I've measured to be 7 times that of equivalent size Isis and Carnacs. So we now want to look at using the healing devices. So we've now looked at the background and the history. So we're now going to look at now some practical applications, and we're going to have a look at do a healing job, well, follow on through. So using the devices, they can be used for clearing and energizing objects, places, food, healing of people, including self-healing. Now, they're very useful for self-healing, particularly when you use a witness, and the witness is a photograph of yourself, and they can be used for helping animals and plants. Now, when you're using these things, you are not in the loop, as you would be with other healing activities. You are not channeling any healing or clearing. You are just the facilitator who states the intention for the healing or clearing. After that, the device does its own thing. It is strictly a matter between the device, the recipient, and universal consciousness. It is an energetic triad at the quantum level. Okay, the healing space needs to be energetically clear. So we're looking at spiritual hygiene. Client's work, play, and home environment needs to be energetically clear, or better still, energetically active, in order for healing to have an optimum effect. Now, if you actually went down to, you got a cut or something, and you went down to the local A&E, we're assuming it's actually taking in people with cuts, you'd be horrified if you went into the place and it was dirty. Oh, God, you know, kind of clean up my cut. And then you would get a cut and you go back into a dirty environment. You know, you're not giving that healing on your cut a chance to heal. So in ancient Egypt, of course, the healing space would have been energetically clear. The home, work and play environments would have been energetically clear, because that's where they designed it. They built it like that, to be energetically clear. Our environments aren't. So we're not giving any of these devices 100% chance. And it doesn't matter whether we're using these devices or we're actually doing hovering of hands or Reiki. We're still not giving that healing the best chance it can have to give us an improvements. I just want to talk about Chislehurst Caves as an energetically active and healing environment. During the Second World War, because London was being bombed, and there were people leaving London to go to safety. So a number ended up down in Kent in Chislehurst Caves. So they started to live in the caves, and after a while, they found that all their aches and pains and ailments were actually getting better, if not being cured. And then they found out, of course, that the Chislehurst Caves are full of wonderful, energetic, healing energies. So there you go. Which, of course, is what the putting your bed inside a space-round pyramid will do the same for you. See, all these, right, so all the devices need to be stored in the disassembled condition. We assemble them immediately prior to use and disassemble them immediately afterwards. When you disassemble it immediately, when you assemble them, it turns them on, and disassemble, it turns them off. Healing can be done face-to-face or remotely using a witness, and clearances on site or remote using a witness, and the witness can be a photograph, a mannequin, hair, clothing, plan, drawing, map, etc., whatever it is you're doing. The device can be used in dangle mode. By dangle mode, I mean it is actually in, being seen as a pendulum. You're hanging it off a piece of string, or it can be on a stand, and we'll look at stands in a minute. If on a stand, you need means of timing needs to be considered, and I'll talk about timing in a bit. And we need to understand what movements we can expect from Isis and Carac and derivative devices. Now, let's just look at a couple of things. Now, here's a mannequin we can use as a witness. These you can buy from art supplies shop. They move body parts. And I used this on myself. I was actually having trouble with an arm, a lot of aches in an arm. So I actually got my mannequin. I stood it on a photograph of myself, and I just went along my arm with a pendulum and gave healing to my arm along there. And within about 20 minutes, I was starting to feel better. I did it over a couple of days, and I cleared myself up. So that's your mannequin, and it's very, very useful. So you can go and wave bye-bye to the people. Bye. There you go. So he's going back. And what we now need to look at is the motions that we get from the pendulums when we're using them. So here I actually have my Isis pendulum. I assemble it. It's now switched on. You're only going to get two motions out of this. One is it's going to turn in an anti-clockwise direction. That's taking out bad energies. And it's going to turn in a clockwise direction, which is going to be putting in good energies, healing energies. Okay, so there's that one. And my Carac, going over here. Yeah, my Carac. Oops. Sorry, it just rolled off my desk. Slight disaster there. Right, this is Carac. Now, this actually has four motions. It can move to the left to start with, and it's going, and it flicks up. As it flicks up, it's pulling out bad energies. It will then rotate in an anti-clockwise direction, taking out energies, rotate in a clockwise direction, putting in energies. And if it's been flicking left, it needs to flick to the right. Finish off. Now, when you're doing a healing with this particular pendulum, it's not always going to be going flick to the left, rotate, rotate, flick to the right. It might just do rotate anti-clockwise, rotate clockwise. So these things, they have a mind of their own. They do their own thing. They determine what energies are there, what energies need removing, and they will act accordingly. So we've done that. Right, let's just get back in and share the screen again. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, here we go. So we're going to look at how I use them. So let's just start off by doing something simple. Let's clear a glass of water and some food with Isis. So we're going to clear a glass of water, and we're going to clear an orange. So let's do this. So I actually say clear and energize my glass of water. Blow into it, into the witness chamber. Screw it together. Hold it over my glass of water. And this was freshly drawn tap water about an hour ago. So it's taking out loads of bad energies. 7 Trent's finest. Put in good energies. Now I have a cleared and energized glass of water. There we go. Cheers. I do the same with my orange. Clear and energize my orange. So I now do my orange. Take out bad energies. Now you can see that a bit better. There we go. Energize my oranges. I'll spare you the horror of me eating an orange. I'll do that later on. There you go. Right, so what we're going to do next. Right, share the screen again. That will be helpful. I'm now going to look at healing a person or an animal. For ease of purpose, we're going to consider a remote healing using a photographic witness. The first thing is to determine what condition or conditions are being presented by the clients. So we have to ask them. I use a graphic form to record all information regarding the healing being given. Now, this complies with insurance requirements. My insurers, every time I renew my insurance, they remind me we need to keep records. It also aids comparison with results of past healings, so we can actually see how the client is progressing or not, as the case might be. So this is the chart I use. This is a graphic, something of a graphical thing. This shows a lady. I have one for a man. I have them with and without the chakra points as well. So up there goes the name, the date, where they are, and the healing number. Conditions presented, devices used, Isis or Carac, spiritual gold. When I've finished a healing, I actually energize and balance the subject with spiritual gold. And what I record here is the strength of Isis or Carnac's activity respect to what's just been going on. Sometimes I'll use an oil, one of those fragrance, smelly oils on the pendulum. It's said to enhance the energy. Projected colours. I'll end at the end of the healing. I'll use the colour wheel and dowse and ask, does this client need any colours projected to assist the healing? It'll either give me a yes or a no, and it will actually tell me which colours to use. I use bioforce units, the Bovis bioforce units. I measure beforehand to see what their energy levels are, how their health level is, and I measure again afterwards, and I normally get something like about 1,000 units increase. And of course down here then there's observations. This is for an animal, it's for a cat. Yeah, it looks like a cat. Again, all this information is exactly the same as it is for a human, but with a cat or any animal, there are some differences in energy points around there. Now, animals also have chakra points, which are the same as ours, but their chakra points are not all active. There's a triad of chakras: the base, the solar plexus, and the crown, which are always active. But these others, the sacral, the heart, the throat, and the brow, are generally inactive. Particularly in a young animal. In an older animal, they might start to become active. What we also actually have here on an animal is something called a sensing point, and we also have here something called a trauma point. Animals have it, humans don't. When we're applying healing to animals, we must always ensure that we apply lots and lots of healing to this trauma point. Now, animals also have secondary chakras on the bases of their ears and on the soles of their feet. There we go. So the first thing we do is fill in the preliminary information, lay the form on top of the witness, use the Bovis life force chart to assess a level of health, take readings before and after, as I've said, dowse which device to use. Do I use Carac? Do I use Isis? Do I include the chakras? And just before I assemble the pendulum, announce the intention of the healing and for whom. Blow in the witness chamber and assemble the device, as you saw what I was doing when I was clearing up the water and the orange. This is the Bovis life force chart, something I got off the internet. Some dowsing group in California created this. And what we actually have here, people, a person in good health, 10,000 units, 9,000 units for a person in average health, person in fair health, 8,000, borderline 7,000. And down here, you're getting people to be pretty sick. If you're dealing with an animal, if it's starting getting below 8, the animal's struggling. You know, it could be in the case where it's not going to make it. Up here, of course, then we've got other energies, energy for church bells, Stonehenge and such like. And it is this device I use to measure the outputs of my pendulums. My tuned Carac and Isis are about 24,000 units for the smaller ones. That big Osiris one I showed you, the big wooden one, it's up here somewhere. It's massive. It's really pumping out energy. Right. So we're going to start with a chart on top of witness in dangle mode. And I'll just go through this and then I'll show you something that I prepared earlier. So in a clockwise direction, slowly scan the aura. If any issues, the device will detect counterclockwise to remove bad energies, and then clockwise to restore with good energy, as you saw with my water and my orange. You record on the chart spots where the reaction took place and the strength of the reaction. For general healing, you scan across the head and body and up and down the limbs. Reaction as for the aura. Treat for if you're treating for specific conditions, you just need to attend to that. You know, if someone's got sciatica, then all you need to be doing is looking at the lower spine, their buttocks and their thighs. And if required, if you've actually dowsed to do the chakras, just as we've seen before. Hang the pendulum over the chakra, it'll take energy out, put energy back in. Now, so let's just have a look. I have here a healing I just recently did. There's a gentleman who wants some healing, and here's the healing chart. And as you can see here, got his name, where he is, etc., along there. And I used an Isis on this particular one, and I went round his, no, sorry, that way around, isn't it? Yeah. So I went round that way in his aura, and these are the spots in his aura. Here's one there. There's another one there. There's one beneath his feet, one up here, one up here. So there's bad energies in his aura. Took them out and put them back in again. Now you see there's a number against that. that number indicates the strength of the swing of the pendulum. Now, that obviously is 0, and that is 5. Okay, so if it's down there, I'll give it a 3, 4, 2, 1. So that gives me an indication of the energy that has been taken out and put back into that particular spot. Then I go across his body, or various points. He's got quite a few points of stuff going on in his chest area and in his abdomen, bit on his legs. There's the conditions presented. I did the spiritual gold on him, energize and balance with spiritual gold. I got a level 4. I did, what's that? Oh, it's orange and blue. Orange is level 4. Blue is a level 3. And Bovis units, 8,900 to start with, 10,200 at the end of the healing session. So hopefully if he's feeling some benefit. Now, one of the problems I actually find with doing any sort of healing, you can, you think, oh, I'm doing the healing for somebody, but the healing or the way people respond to it, you can put that on a scale of 0 to 5, and they'll say, what was all that about? And say, wow, that's amazing. I really felt that. So you can't, if you're giving healing, you can't actually expect everybody to be getting a top level positive reaction. Sometimes they'll just, they didn't feel anything. What was that about? You know? So you have to take it. You just have to ride with that. Go with the flow on that. Right, share again. There we go. Right, there we go. Share. Right. Okay. So we've done that in dangle mode. Closing actions. If you've been using negative green electric then you need to instruct and use a simplified universal pendulum being held by the green marker to neutralize any residual negative green electric energy. So you just hold the pendulum over the chart witness combo, and you just give an instruction and say neutralize any residual negative green electric, and if there is any, it'll just swing away until it's cleaned it up, and it'll stop. Next is, if you have, as I said, if you've got any fully tuned, if you have the fully tuned ISIS device, as I have, you can instruct it to energize and balance with spiritual gold. And we're just seeing that on the chart and recorded the results. And again, if you have a fully tuned ISIS, you can use it to project any colors that may be deficient. And as I said, the colors are determined from the color wheel. And as I said before, reassess the Bovis life force units and record them. Now here's charts of a healing I did a little while ago. Somebody who's actually got blood cancer, which is incurable, but he was actually causing him tiredness. The chemo he was undergoing was inducing arthritis, particularly in his right hand, right arm. He has aching back and trunk, and he was suffering from insomnia. When I started, he had 8,000 Bovis units. When I finished this particular healing, he was at 9,500. So if we look around here, I did Carac on him on this one, and you see that there's big stuff going on in his aura just to the right of his neck. He got a big thing on his thigh there. Another something in his aura right on the other side of his neck, and got all these points around his body. There's sort of moderate to high energy levels around them. 2 weeks later, I did another healing on him. In actual fact, I did one a week later, and then another one 2 weeks later. So this is the healing 1, and this is healing 3. And what we see from here, of course, is that we find that what was going on in his aura to the side of his neck, left and right, has significantly reduced. And he's got some more bits and pieces going on in his arm, but down the side of his body. But when you actually start comparing all these points down here, there is quite a reduction in the energy level. Not only that, we note that even though we left him with a Bioforce units of 9,500 on the first healing, when we come to do the third healing, He's now up to 9,000 and 10,000 when we finish with him. Right, if you work on a stand, you do the preliminary actions as for the dangle mode. You set up a stand and a witness photograph. You align such that the device is pointing directly at an area in need of healing. You instruct the device with your intention, assemble it and mount it on the stand. Timing by means of dowsing for a specific, you need to time by means of dowsing for a specific time, and then you just need to watch the clock. Or you may suspend a small ISIS device and let it rotate on its own accord. When it stops healing, it is complete. So to do the dowsing, to determine the time and then do it on a stopwatch, you need a number chart, and you say, you know, for how many minutes should I apply this healing to X? And you'll get a reading, 3 minutes or something. So you set it off and set the stopwatch going, or the timer, and away you go. And I did something the other day. I tested it out, and I said, for how long do I have to do the timing on this? And it said 3 minutes. So I went and did the work. I actually held a pendulum and let that run. And after 3 minutes, the pendulum stopped. So a good correlation. Closing actions as for dangle mode. Now here we see a subject being healed. This is our cat, Uncle Puds by name. Uncle Puds has got a bit of a sore mouth here. And what I've got is a Carac device. And if you actually stand behind it and line it up, you'll find it is actually pointing directly at his tooth there. The stand you see here is an articulated mobile phone holder, and this bit here, in actual fact, is the stand for the universal pendulum. So that's it. So let's give the cat some healing. Now the thing is, with animals, animals are going to be very, very difficult to keep still whilst you're trying to do any pendulum healing on them. They'll keep moving. Cats in particular, they want to swipe the pendulum and think it's something to play with. It's prey. Dogs are a bit easier to deal with. They will lie down and just lie down and lap it up, and they enjoy it. But cats are quite difficult. So yes, sometimes the animal might be a bit too big. You don't want to get too close to it. So that's it. So we're almost there. Resources, there's some books if you're interested. Back to the Future for Mankind, Biogeometry by Dr. Ibrahim Karim. Divining Ancient Sites by Maria Wheatley. Essai de Résistide Vibratoire by Leon Winnert and Antoine de Bellezelle, published in the 1930s originally in French, still being published today in French. There's no English translation or any other translation. The Giza Power Plant by Christopher Dunn. The Keys to the Temple by David Furlong. And then these two here, Handbook New Dowsing, Quantum Healing with Pendulums, and a workbook, ditto, by Brigitte Schmidt. Brigitte Schmidt took a load of pendulums created by Biopendulums, and the derivative pendulums I showed you about halfway through the presentation are some of these. So this is a handbook and a manual of how to use those particular derivative pendulums. So that's good. Healing Devices and Pendulums, Biopendulums and Tunbridge Wells. As I say, that's where me and my partner get our pendulums from, and also Alicia Aratian's Alicia Centre of Wellbeing in Ontario. We get stuff from her. Training, Maria Wheatley at the Esoteric College. Alicia Aratian does stuff, and you go onto her website to find some stuff. And there's Carolina at Biopendulums, who does some bits and pieces of training. And I do recommend you look at this quick 15 minutes introduction to using ISIS pendulums by Maria. It is very good. So that's it. So there we go. Thank you for your attention, and hope you found that interesting and beneficial. Stop sharing. There we go.
Hey, thank you, Leon, for a very extensive talk there. Excuse me. I just want to start. What I will do is unmute everybody in a moment. But I'll just start off. Did you heal before you were introduced to the pendulums? Did you ever do healing then?
Yes, I did. did healing. Essentially, I started doing healing with a lady called Sue Allen, who ran the School of Intuition and Healing. So I learned hovering of hands healing.
Right, right. Yeah.
Sue was a social worker and very keen on correctness, and so you don't touch people. You just
right, right.
You know, because these days, because the old days, of course, you used to have it was the laying on of hands. It's still known as the laying on of hands, but get yourself into a lot of trouble if you're not careful these days.
Yeah. And did you?
Yeah.
And then when you met Maria, did you have quite extensive training with her? Did it?
Yes. Her ISIS training is five sessions, hour at a time. So and the Carac is similar as well. So
right.
But then again, with Maria, to get the certification offer, because I am a certified Egyptian healing device healer through Maria, and I then had to do case studies and produce, find some clients and get the written feedback, etc., for those.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I've got a couple of questions. We've got Mary, we've got Cecilia. Cecilia just wrote a question in the chat here, so I'll just do this first. It said, "Do you use biogeometry double? Do you use the biogeometry double pendulum, and how?"
I do. I just use it as a clearing device. I use it in the same way as I would actually use my ISIS pendulum to actually do a final cleanup of somebody. Because the problem with these biogeometry pendulums, Dr. Karim has set himself up a cash cow industry with training architects and town planners on how to use these things. He publishes nothing on these things. You buy these pendulums, they're expensive. You will only find out how to use them if you sign up for his courses, which are very expensive. But the fact that they've determined that they do generate energy, they do transmit energy, then I just use them in the same way as I would my ISIS pendulum. Although you can't take them apart, they are actually one solid piece, but they're not dangerous. So there's no great problem with them.
Okay. Could we go to Mary Smale, please? Mary?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask you these two questions because they're the sort of questions that people will ask if they're not dowsers. One of them is, you stated that the pendulum generates energy.
Yes.
So is it generating energy, or is it gathering energy from other places and shifting it around, or is it actually creating out of nout?
It's generating energy from its shape. That's all I know.
So when you say it generates energy, where's in terms of E equals mc squared, what's going on there? Or are we in woo-woo quantum land?
I don't think we're in woo-woo quantum land, because the Great Pyramid of Giza is generating energy. It's just sort of sitting
right
there, and it's the shape of energy. There are earth energies. There's energy all around us.
So are we looking at something that's outside the normal paradigms of physics?
No. The normal paradigms of physics include quantum energy, and I believe, and a lot of people now believing, we're now actually talking of quantum physics. Which is
how far can we scale this up then and replace our nuclear power stations?
Your question is interesting but not relevant, because this has been the big question that's always been gone about the Great Pyramid of Giza. People are saying, oh, it should be, it's generating nuclear power. It's not generating nuclear power. That is the big misconception, that we can actually start generating these things up into nuclear fusion or fission reaction. No, this is just energy, quantum energy.
Okie dokie. I'm just being awkward because people like awkward questions. And the other one is, when you talk about energy waves in vertical orientation or horizontal orientation, vertical and horizontal are relative terms. I can stand up when I'm vertical, I can lie down, I'm horizontal. So how how do I differentiate what's in relation to what?
The problem is that the polarization, it rotates anyway. You're actually now into polarization of an electromagnetic wave, and it rotates. But it's just that one gives off a propensity in one direction as opposed to the other. Again.
Right. Yeah. So these are the sorts of questions that, I mean, these things don't bother me because I've been doing healing for ages and I don't really bother about this stuff if it works. But these are the sorts of questions that people ask, and I just was interested to see how you'd answer them. But thank you very much for a really interesting presentation. I shall get myself one of these and play with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, appreciate your compliment.
Oh, sorry, I just got a question from Julia Wilcock here in the chat. For the Mia Isis pendulum, would you consider?
Oh, sorry, Alicia.
Sorry.
Alicia.
Okay.
The Mare Isis that I produced there, it came from Biopendulums, and Brigitte's book is going to have some stuff in there on it, I think. I know my partner, she uses it quite extensively for healing. I don't know.
Okay. I'm going to ask people to unmute if they want to ask a question now, please. So if anybody would like to ask a question.
Yes, I would just like to ask two questions. Could you recommend any literature for animal healing? That's a very interesting chart you had.
Sorry, could you repeat? Catch your first words.
Yes, could you recommend literature for animal healing? You had some charts there. Where did you source those charts?
Ah, right. Well, the charts, in actual fact, the outlines I just actually ferreted around on the internet. In terms of actually getting information on how to heal an animal, I actually did a animal healing course with a lady called Debbie Cackness in South Africa. And that's where I got all that information from. There are publications out there, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the reference is, but there is some information which is available on that. I can see if I can maybe. Is there any facility, Nick, to leave information around somewhere on the website? I could actually there for
what I will do is I'll might be tomorrow, might be Saturday. I'll put Leon's a recording of this talk onto the YouTube site, and in the text underneath the video I can put some links to further information. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine. I'll have a dig around in my books and see what I can find out.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
There is some little bit of a publication around, but.
And just a second question, how long does the spiritual gold remain with the person?
Interesting question. I have no idea.
Thank you very much.
I think the answer to that is, one has to indulge in spiritual hygiene. So if someone's actually in a dirty environment,
yes,
going the wrong way, it will eventually come off, because what we find is, people will actually need repeat healings, and normally we work on the basis of a program of 5 healings over a week or so, over a 5-week period. What you then find, of course, is after about week 3, the level of energies going in, coming out seem to tail off. So you're just kind of keeping a balance there. So eventually, if you do come back to that client and you look again after, say, 10 weeks, 20 weeks, you'll find things are starting to rise up again a bit. So some people, it will stay with them for a long time. Other times it'll just stay with them for days.
Lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Keith Buckler has just raised a question in the chat. What do you make of the Queen's Chamber being in what appeared to be the bad energy zone of the pyramid, while the king was in the good zone? What do you make of that?
I have to admit, I have no idea because I'm no expert on the design of the thing. I would really have to refer you to David Furlong or read his book, The Keys to the Temple. So I really can't answer that. For me to even attempt it would be fraudulent.
Okay. Nicola Dexter said the Mere Isis pendulum I have was from Alicia, and it works well for reducing pain. So
yeah, that's
comment.
Nicola.
Would anybody else like
I have
to?
one more question. I have a 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 band Isis.
Yes.
Is that much more powerful than the 4-band Isis?
Will be, yes. As I said, it's like a torch battery. The more batteries you have in the torch, the more powerful the torch is.
Okay.
So you've actually got, theoretically, you've got 50% more power coming out of that thing.
Okay, thank you.
Theoretically.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi. I purchased what I was told was an Osiris K at a BSD conference once. Can you give me any information on this? You told me how to use it at the time, but I've never used it, and I've long since forgotten what to do with it. Is it a thing?
It's a derivative. Clearly, it's a derivative of a Carac and an Isis. I've never seen anything like that before. I assume with all of these things, give it an instruction and see what happens. Over a glass of water, just get a glass of water and say, remove bad energies, put in good energies and see what it does.
Okay. All right. I'll try it.
That's the best thing I can.
I was just a bit concerned because this doesn't come apart.
No.
And I was a bit concerned about what you were saying about the negative green energies and what have you.
That's the big problem. People make these things and they don't actually understand what they're making.
Well, I didn't understand what I was buying, but it looked quite good at the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. We all end up doing these things. Oh, that looks good. Thinking, then you find a health warning about someone said, should I have bought that?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah,
sure.
Hi. Let me put the camera on. Okay, so it's actually the first one is quick and the second one may not be quite so quick, but what do you think, or what's the received wisdom with regards to what Charmery was really doing? So to actually build, sort of make those pendulums as large.
Yeah.
What do you think he was actually working on? Because it couldn't have been accidental that he just made them of those sizes.
No, I think what they were trying to do is maximize, see if they could maximize the energy generation.
What, the negative green?
Yes, yes. They didn't understand what it was. This is the problem. They were actually, it's like when Madame Curie was playing with radium. You didn't know what she was playing with, but it killed her.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the problem. You pick something up, you take it into a laboratory, say, "Oh, this is great." Then people start dying off. So Madame Curie killed herself with her radiation experiments because people thought at that time radiation was wonderful. Oh yeah, have some radiation, have some radiation. No one really believed or understood that it was dangerous.
Yeah.
Bit by bit, of course, we do know. We now know, of course, there is no safe level of radiation.
I mean, I've got to say thank you for your insights, because I am now aware that I got some pendulums actually from France, not China or the Far East.
Yes.
And they had quite, sort of high levels of negative green. So, yeah, there's a sort of word of caution in terms of what we're buying, where we're buying, and checking the energies.
Yeah. See, if you go to Alicia in Ontario or Carolina in Tunbridge Wells, their products, they will actually tell you what is being generated by them, and they will come with a health warning. Use with caution. Only use if you actually know what you're doing. But you're buying these things off the internet, and so, oh, you have this pendulum, wonderful energy coming out of it. Yeah.
Okay, that's the first one. Thank you. And the second one, it's an observation, but also after a bit of clarity, I suppose. On your high frequency color dowsing chart,
Yes.
I was struck by the sort of lower half of it.
Yes.
And it wasn't sort of colors as one would think, but, you know, it had, you know, the physical, the emotional, mental,
Yes.
intuitional. Are they regarded as colors? And then the second part of that question is that what struck me is that the infinity sign was there representing the divine feminine.
That's right. Yeah.
But also it was equal to the sign that was there for source. So can you just say a bit more about that? Because that got me quite excited.
Yeah, because what you actually got on the bottom of the chart, there is actually a frequency band. They're harmonics. Okay, if you understand harmonics, you actually have a frequency of, say, 10 cycles per second, 10 hertz. Then you have a harmonic, which is 20 of it, and 40. So it comes in a bands. Okay, so these are these sort of harmonic bands, and the higher the harmonic, the higher the band, and so you eventually get up into the divine area. That makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I just say something?
Yes.
Yes.
I've learnt more tonight. I've done Maria Weekly's Isis pendulum training, but I've learnt more tonight, and it's made more sense and pieced things together. Can I just ask, when you say you do energetic clearing, how would you do your energetic clearing and cleansing before you would start to work with a client?
Just go through a ritual if you want. What I would tend to do, I would use a is this the one I have here? A 16 bar Isis, or the Super Isis.
Wow.
Now, in one of Alicia's DVDs on her Science of Dowsing, it's got some rituals and procedures in there for clearing healing spaces. And basically, it's just chant some words and let this thing swing around to clear and re-energize. And that clears my healing space. That's how I do it. But there are other ways to do it. You could go around and smudge it with sage, burn some incense, and so on and so on. So there are ways of clearing a space.
Yeah.
So if you're into space clearing, you may have your own ways of doing it. And I say smudging is one way to do it.
Yeah.
But the problem with the smudging is it leaves the smell of smoke.
And also your chart. Would it be possible to have a copy of that chart that you found on the internet? Would we be able to?
Yeah, it's a person. Oh, you mean the Bovis chart?
No, the other one. It must have been it must have been the circular one, the Bovis one. But there was
the Bovis chart. Yeah. Yes, I can.
The one that you got from Canada.
Yeah, it can. Yes, I can put that on there. I'd have to be careful about putting Maria's color chart because it's her.
Yeah,
and she's as you appreciate, she's as you know, she gets very possessive about her intellectual property.
No, when we had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to initiate our Isis pendulums, and
yes, I know. I would actually say if you're doing initiating Isis pendulums, don't do it in the summer, do it in the winter, because you're going to be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning at daybreak. In the winter, you're getting up at 7 for daybreak.
We did it during lockdown.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else got any questions? No, you're all stunned.
Oh, we've been going for nearly 2 hours, so
Really?
maybe it's time for a break. Yeah.
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
What is ULF? When you were mentioning about EMFs, what is ULF?
Ultra low frequencies.
All right.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Leon.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for your attendance,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Very
Thank you, Leon. That was super. That was very interesting.
Good.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was a wonderful talk.
Good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.